triaging, set and close ratios, cash collected, and PIFs. If you're not up to date with what these terms are and what they actually mean, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Today, I'm going to be giving you the details of 9 terms that you must know if you're looking to get into high ticket sales. Let's dive into it. The first term that you need to know is PIF. Now, when I first got started in high ticket sales, I had no idea what anybody meant by that. I saw it in Facebook groups, I saw it in testimonials, I saw it in case studies, and I had no idea. People talking about PIF, Piffy, the magic dragon, the whole lot, right? I had no clue what that was. Now, typically the coaching companies that you're going to be working with have high ticket products. Let's say, for example, it's $4,000. Most people don't have $4,000 on hand, so they're not going to be able to give the company that you're working with all that money and all that cash in one hit and go. So this is where a payment plan will come in, where the prospect or the potential customer or client can pay in installments. So 2, 3 pay, and all the way up to a paid in full, which is when you collect all the cash up front for the business that you're working for. Term number 2 is triage. All triaging is, put very simply, is just a different mode and vehicle of appointment setting. All that you do in this position is taking inbound, booked in your calendar calls that range from 10 to 15 minutes. Now, there's 3 main objectives that you have while taking a triage. Number 1 is actually qualifying the lead and making sure that they are somebody that you can sell to, that the closer can sell to, that your business offers a solution for. If the prospect you're talking to doesn't have a problem which your business's solution aligns to, well, then what you're going to be doing is acting as a filtration method to make sure that they don't go to the next call and end up wasting both the closer's time and the prospects. The second thing is the actual micro qualifications that is based off a company. So they might want to qualify for time, for partner concerns, for money, right? It's really going to depend on what the company's parameters are and what it is that you're doing in your sales process. And then third and finally is to get the person that you're talking to, if they're qualified, they are a fit, and you can sell something to them that you make sure that they show up to the next call. This is done with certain follow-up protocols, etc., etc. The third term you're going to need to know about is closing percentage. All a closing percentage is your conversion rate of the amount of calls that you've taken. Let's take, for example, you have 100 calls in your calendar that all show up in a given month. Let's say that you convert 50 of them. You would then be at a 50% conversion rate. So this is normally pretty simple to understand. However, the industry has now invented a new metric, which is offers made conversion rate. Now, to make sure that you don't have any confusion between the two of them, let me break this down. As I just mentioned, a conversion rate is based off the calls that you actually take. And offers made conversion metric is based off the calls that you actually offer the solution to. This is a really interesting metric that a lot of closers have invented themselves to often protect their ego. The main thing that you want to be primarily focused on is your conversion percentage, not your offers made, because you're only basically basing your metrics off the calls that you've had that went perfectly, that you decided to offer the prospect the solution. So it's super simple. If you're in an interview, make sure that you clarify between offers made versus a general conversion percentage. The next term on the list is going to be cash collected. Now, all this simply means is tying back to my point earlier, talking about paid in fulls and payment plans. All cash collected means is the money that has landed in the bank for the business owner. So let's say that you're selling a $5,000 high ticket coaching product to your prospect and you accept a payment plan of a 2-pay. If you are selling it for $5,000 and you only collect half of it, this would mean a 50% cash collection percentage. Where a lot of people go wrong with this is people think that the on-target earnings or what the business owner is proposing to you on what you're going to make, they're basing these numbers off revenue numbers, off contracted, right? Which is where things can be mixed up. I'm going to talk about contract value here in a minute, but just stay with me. The reason why it's important to know the difference between the two is because you can say that a business is doing 6 figures a month, but they're at a 50% cash collection rate, which means in actual fact, you can think you're going to be making 10K a month if you're taking 10%, but in reality, you're typically going to be paid on what you collect in the business. So you're actually going to be making only 5K a month, but you may or may not know that if you're not familiar with these terms. So this brings me to my next term, which is contracted. Contracted revenue, whatever you'd like to call it, these are very much vanity metrics, and a lot of business owners like to inflate their numbers and say that they're doing more than they actually are in reality. and they like to talk about numbers that are on paper but not actually cash in the bank. So all contracted or revenue simply means is that, let's say for example, I sell a coaching program for $30,000, but it's actually a yearly subscription at $2,500 every single month. I've contracted for the business $30,000, but I've only collected $2,500 of it. This is the clear difference between the two, cash collected and contracted. Sometimes knowing the difference between the two can make or break your offer selection skills and making sure that you work with an offer that can make you the money that you actually want. The next term you're going to need to know about is on target earnings, aka OTE. You'll see on every single platform where you can find job posts, in Facebook groups, on Instagram, everywhere. It's always going to be the number that's thrown around: 10, 15, 20, 30K OTE. All this simply means is the business has done some calculated projections for what might be considered possible in the position that you go and work in. It's really important that you have this skill to, when you go and work with these business owners or talk to these business owners, to understand the difference between OTE and the actual brass tacks, the reality of things. More times than I can count, in my personal experience, have I gone into a business and they have a high OTE, they have a high on target earnings calculation or presumption or estimation, and you get in there and it's not even half of it. This is why it's super important that you study the math and you look at the math and you know the numbers you need to be looking for, so you can actually do your research to see on whether or not the OTE that they've put out actually matches up to what they're actually saying. The next term I want to talk about is offer. Now, all an offer is simply a business that you can go and work for. Another word that you might hear thrown around the place is account, and all this does is a company that you can go and work with in the high ticket sales space. The next term I want to talk about is KPI, aka key performance indicator. Put simply, a performance indicator or key performance indicator is a type of performance measurement. KPIs evaluate the success of an organization or of a particular activity in which it engages. So when you go and work with these offers, you go and work on these accounts, these businesses, they're typically going to give you a set of KPIs that you need to achieve. KPIs can be both on inputs and outputs. For example, inputs can be dials and calls that you're making on a daily basis. For example, your KPI is 100, 200, or 300 dials per day. An output is what you get out of it, the result, the outcome, aka how many closes did you have for the month? What was your conversion rate? As I just mentioned in the definition, all these are going to be used is to track and measure your progress and your efficiency within the company or the offer that you go ahead and work for. And then finally, a bunch of terms that you may or may not have heard of before: SDR, BDR, senior advisor, account executive. All this is two different categories of terms for an appointment setter and a high ticket closer. But under the general landscape of things, all these names that you hear thrown around, all these fancy titles, are just fancy titles for salespeople, even a setter or a closer. So you're probably going to be hearing words like senior advisor, senior expert. All this is basically designed to do is just to make it look like the prospect isn't talking to a salesperson. That's simply all that it is. Because the moment that somebody knows that you're a salesperson, it's going to induce resistance. If you're talking to a salesperson, most people don't want to talk to salespeople across the board. So that's it for this one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you got some value, you learned something today, I'd appreciate it if you can smash that like button. Go ahead and subscribe, because we're going to be having a ton more content coming out just like this in the future. And of course, if you guys are looking for that extra support, that extra little bit of help and guidance along this high ticket sales journey, go ahead, find the link down in the description. There'll be a link where you can apply to potentially be a fit for my RSA Mastermind, where we help guys like yourself make the transformation that they want to have much quicker than I did myself. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.